One small habit within the first 30 minutes of your day could be wreaking havoc on your hormones and your nervous system. And most people don't even realize that they're doing it. Hi, I'm Dr. Dawn Browning, somatic scientist and yoga therapist. And if your mornings feel harder than they should, you might unknowingly be pushing your nervous system out of sync, even before your first cup of coffee. In this video, I want to talk about what's happening in those first few minutes when you wake up, and one tiny shift that can reset your whole day. I want to start by talking a little bit about cortisol, a stress hormone that has received a lot of press lately, not all of which is true, and I want to offer some information to help you understand your natural rhythms and baseline and sift through some of the stuff that's out there. So cortisol and adrenaline are two stress hormones that work in concert. So there's a natural cycle every day in your cortisol patterns. So cortisol it's kind of associated with your waking up and your energy, and it's designed to help you mobilize. So it's part of the sympathetic nervous system. There's a misconception out there that high cortisol is bad or in stress-only situations. We want cortisol to be working properly. It's absolutely essential to our survival and well-being. But some of the things that we're doing kind of amplify its presence in the nervous system and in the bloodstream. So cortisol and adrenaline are two stress hormones that work in concert together, and they are part of the activating sympathetic nervous system. So we want them to work properly. We want them to be able to switch on when we need them. But honestly, what's happening is, through a number of things that I'm going to share in a few minutes, we are hijacking that natural cycle and disrupting it. And in some cases, we're elevating the distribution of cortisol in the saliva and in the bloodstream. So I want to reframe this, that cortisol is not the enemy. We want it to be working properly, but what we want to do really is to be in sync with our natural rhythms with this stress hormone. I want to offer a reframe. It isn't universal that we need to lower cortisol, except what we want to do is not amplify its secretion and presence in our saliva and in our bloodstreams. Okay, so it's a bit of a nuance. So all these things, you can lower your cortisol levels, but we really don't want to universally do that, right? We want it to be able to function as and when it should. So here's a metaphor. If we think of cortisol as our internal sunrise, we want it to rise gradually instead of being flipped on like a floodlight. So why do so many of us wake up feeling wiped, even after we've had 8 or even 9 hours of sleep? The culprit isn't necessarily inside the body, it's in the environment. There is a single cue that resets your hormones every morning, and most of us are using it wrong. The cue is light. So you may have heard this already before, that blue light from screens is harmful. And while there's some truth to that, the effects are not the same throughout the 24-hour period, and there is a lot of nuance. So I want to summarize 3 principles from the scientific literature, and I will include the studies that I'm talking about or referencing here in the video description if you want to learn more. The first is a cortisol awakening response. This is that normal kind of functional increase in cortisol within the first 30 to 45 minutes after waking. And if you have too much light, fluorescent lights, or too much light first thing upon waking, it can completely cause that spike in cortisol to happen too abruptly. And you may be carrying elevated cortisol throughout the day as a result. There is a blue light effect. So blue or LED lights signal a strong daytime signal to your hypothalamus pituitary axis. So this is this pathway tied to the eyes that moves from the front of the brain, the hypothalamus, to the back of the brain, where the pituitary gland is in the center of the brain. And so this blue light, this LED signal that we might be experiencing first thing in the morning can completely kind of elevate that strong daytime signal. So it can be too fast rather than the gradual ramp up that we want to kind of emulate in our day to day. And the third point that I want to make is related to the flow of your hormones. So if you elevate your cortisol too abruptly in the morning by either looking at your phone first thing or flipping on all the LED lights in your house when you wake up in the morning to make your coffee, then you will very likely experience a blunt afternoon rhythm indicated by fatigue, irritability, or sugar cravings. So how we wake up is critically important to how we feel throughout the day, linking to hormone cycles that can manifest as fatigue in the afternoon. This isn't the only thing that affects your patterns in the afternoon, of course. There's a number of things. But I want to point out that that elevating your cortisol too quickly in the morning with artificial light can really cause you to be elevated throughout the day. And it's a simple practice that you can adjust with very little effort. This number one morning habit to shift is to keep the lights low for the first 30 minutes you're awake. Ideally, operate by candlelight. It can be a candlelight, it could be a salt lamp, or a low amber bulb. I personally love navigating my early mornings by candlelight. So I use natural candles without artificial kind of aromas or chemicals in them. But I use my candles in the kitchen as I'm making coffee, on the desk as I'm journaling in the morning, and I allow myself to wake in a more kind of natural, simple, slower way. I definitely avoid all LED and blue lights, so I do not. I keep my phone in airplane mode until I've been awake for at least 30 minutes, like ideally an hour. And this allows your natural cortisol rhythms to rise naturally. And then once you're fully awake, you can step outside and ideally capture the early morning sun, gazing at the early morning sun only for about the first 10 minutes within the sun rising, because you don't want to stare at the sun. But the natural exposure to early sunrise light is incredibly nourishing for your nervous system and also supports a healthy cortisol response. Now, I think kind of grounding yourself by stepping outside with bare feet and taking in the morning sunlight is a beautiful way to start your day. But personally, for me, that isn't always the easiest thing to do. And so using candles to support myself upon waking is a definitely more accessible thing to do. But certainly getting outside and catching those early morning sunlight rays is very, very beneficial. So I want to take a moment and share kind of my lived experience as a woman in midlife, where our hormonal rhythms, they shift and our energy feels unpredictable, or that can be the case. And this one adjustment can really have profound effects. So I want you to give it a try, because you're not lazy. Your biology is just seeking a different cue. So that's what we're doing. It's like we're setting ourselves up to start the day in a different state. So give this a try for a week or even several days and notice what you notice. And what I want you to do is notice how you feel when you wake up with softness by candlelight, for instance, versus turning on the fluorescent light or looking at your phone first thing in the morning. Notice how you feel not only right upon waking, but throughout your day. When you make a slower start, or maybe a more romantic start to your day, you may feel that you have a steadier mood, that your energy is a little more stable. You don't crash in the afternoon. And I would love to know how it feels or how it works for you. And Even just share in a comment below. And if you want to pair this with a quick breath practice, I have a 5-minute guided breath practice here in the video that I've linked. And I would love for you to give that a try. Pair it with waking by candlelight. At the 1-minute mark is where we kick off the breath practice. And for a full week of energy stabilizing practices, including your breath, I also have a 7-day energy reset that could be a perfect start for you. Let me know how you feel. I would love to see how this practice worked for you. You can leave it in the comment below. Thanks.